Some of the finest bolt-action rifles ever made didn't come from billion-dollar brands or end up in blockbuster war movies. They weren't hyped, they weren't mass-produced, and they sure as hell weren't built for corner cutting. And yet, the huge majority of shooters have never heard of them. Want to know what they are? In this video, we'll talk about 8 bolt guns that flew under the radar. Not because they lacked quality, but because of the timing, the politics, or the market just didn't favor them. From a Finnish 222 that still punches dime-sized groups, to an Austrian carbine that earned Hemingway's praise, to a futuristic Caseless rifle that freaked out the ATF. These rifles will tell a different story, and not one of them deserves to be forgotten. We'll take a closer look at Canada's controversial Ross MK III, which failed in the trenches, but still turns heads at the range. We'll visit the Danish Madsen M47, a beautifully made military rifle that missed the party by a decade. You'll see how Sweden's Carl Gustaf 1900 and Britain's BSA CF2 quietly outperformed more popular names in the hunting world. And we'll wrap it up with the Schultz and Larsen M65DL, a rear-locking bolt gun built so well it makes you wonder why rifles aren't made like that anymore. If you're into bolt actions, or just enjoy hearing about forgotten brilliance, stick around. These rifles might not be famous, but you'll love them just the same. Sako L46 Riihimäki. I'd wager most folks in the States have never run across the Sako L46. That's a shame, because it has real significance to Finnish gun making. It rolled out right after World War II, back when Sako was pivoting away from its military repair roots and heading for the sporting market. The earliest version was chambered in .222 Remington, which was perfect for small game or varmint hunting, and that combination of mild recoil and accurate shooting earned it a quite cult following in Scandinavia. Its build quality was remarkable, especially for such a compact rifle. It handled beautifully in the woods, which is why so many Finnish grouse hunters treasured it. Owners found it easy to carry, and that smooth action still surprises people who shoot one for the first time. It had various markings, some stamped L46, some L469, others simply Sako Riihimäki. So a fair number of folks might own one without even realizing its pedigree. Those in the know appreciate its role as the foundation of Sako's bolt-action lineup. The later L461 Vixen took the spotlight, but the L46 deserves more credit for putting Sako on the map. Americans largely overlooked it because bigger caliber domestic rifles dominated the scene, and Sako's market in the US was limited back then. Collectors in Europe still hunt for pristine examples, especially those with special stocks or the .222 Magnum variant. I'd say if you ever come across an L46 at a decent price, you'd be wise to give it some thought. Mannlicher Schönauer M1903. Some rifles just feel special the moment you work the bolt, and this old Austrian design is one of them. The Mannlicher Schönauer M1903 won people over early with its silky smooth action and distinctive rotary magazine. It came out about when Steyr was refining decades of Mannlicher rifle concepts, replacing the older in-block clip with Otto Schönauer's spool system. That design made the M1903 quiet to cycle and reliable as can be. Greece adopted it for military use, but most countries couldn't justify the cost when Mausers were cheaper. Steyr took that top-tier build quality to the commercial market, though, and hunters who wanted something refined loved it. Ernest Hemingway was one of its most famous fans. He carried it to Africa, to the Bahamas, even wrote it into his stories. Part of the charm is how light and balanced the M1903 is, especially the carbine with its 17.7-inch barrel. Chambered in 6.5 by 54 mm, it delivered impressive penetration despite modest recoil. The cost to produce such a carefully crafted rifle eventually became its downfall. Military contracts never really materialized beyond Greece, and post-war competition from mass-produced bolt actions didn't help. By the 1970s, Steyr stopped making it because buyers gravitated to modern features that the M1903 split bridge receiver couldn't accommodate. It's still admired for its effortless cycling and refined details, like a butter knife bolt handle. Spotting one today often means stumbling upon a cherished heirloom. If you appreciate bolt guns that handle almost like an extension of your arm, the Mannlicher Schönauer M1903 is worth learning about. Ross Rifle Mk3. Canada's Ross Rifle Mk3 has always sparked debate because it excelled as a target rifle, yet floundered in trench warfare. Sir Charles Ross, a Scottish nobleman with a passion for firearm design, crafted this straight-pull bolt action to give Canada its own service rifle. It was adopted around 1910 as the Mk3, promising quick follow-up shots and impressive accuracy. Unfortunately, it didn't fare well in the mud of World War I, where tight tolerances caused jams and improperly reassembled bolts could fail catastrophically. That performance gap led to its withdrawal from frontline service and a quick replacement by the tried-and-true SMLE. The Ross still found favor among marksmen, however, and it served as a solid sniper platform. Some examples ended up scattered across the globe, and they occasionally reappeared in niche roles, even into World War II. It's easy to dismiss it because of its combat track record, but the rifle was ahead of its time in a number of ways. The straight pull system allowed rapid cycling, and when conditions were clean, it offered first-rate precision. In the era of bolt action designed by committee, the Ross stood as one man's vision. That uniqueness keeps it relevant among collectors today. It wasn't the best match for trench fighting, but in a hunting or target setting, the Mk3 was superb. It's rare to see one outside a collector's vault, and that's a pity because the Ross shows how a rifle can both be misunderstood and remarkable. If you get a chance to examine one in decent shape, you'll see why it's still discussed among enthusiasts who appreciate a design that dared to be different. Carl Gustaf Stads Factory Model 1900. Few rifles say understated excellence quite like the Carl Gustaf 1900. Made in Sweden by a factory that had been turning out guns for over a century, this push-feed action was designed to give hunters a reliable, well-machined bolt gun. It wasn't a military issue or a household name, but those who shot one often realized they were handling something that could rival top offerings from Germany or the U.S. The company behind it, Carl Gustaf Stads Factory, had worked on everything from rolling blocks to Swedish Mausers, so it had no shortage of engineering know-how. By the time they introduced the 1900, they wanted a rifle that could handle a wide range of cartridges without sacrificing consistency. The receiver was built in one standard size, but the bolt travel and magazine were clearly matched to whatever caliber you ordered. Everything about it felt refined, from the smooth bolt to the crisp single-stage trigger. Its obscurity can be chalked up to limited marketing beyond Europe and a tangle of rebrands. Some rifles were sold under other names or imported in small batches, and that kind of patchy distribution kept it from becoming a mainstay in North America. Many shooters choose the more familiar Remington 700 or Winchester Model 70 instead. Anyone lucky enough to find a Carl Gustaf 1900 in good condition usually discovers that it groups remarkably well. The steel is top quality, and the manufacturing tolerances are consistent with Sweden's long tradition of precision. The rifle never dominated the shelves, but it's one of those hidden gems that can still outshoot more famous models and then get passed down through the family. BSA CF2. Ask about British-made bolt guns, and most folks will mention the Lee Enfield or some high-end double rifle. The BSA CF2 rarely enters that conversation, yet it deserves a better reputation. It came from the Birmingham Small Arms Company, which had been building firearms since Queen Victoria's day, so they knew a thing or two about forging barrels and crafting actions. When the CF2 appeared in the 1960s and 70s, it aimed to offer a modern bolt action that could match or beat what was rolling out of American factories. Economic realities in the UK and limited global advertising, though, meant it never really found a foothold. That's a shame, because the CF2 has a solid push-feed design with good metallurgy and a smooth bolt throw. Some rifles had steel bottom metal, others aluminum, but either way, they were assembled with care. The result was an accurate hunter that also looked sleek, thanks to well-proportioned stocks and checkering that wasn't overly flashy. Caliber offerings were broad, from .243 up to .30-06, and the receiver was often machined for easy scope rail mounting. BSA used names like Majestic and Monarch, but they were basically variations of the same CF2 platform. Over time, BSA lost ground in the international market, and these rifles became overlooked. If you come across a CF2 that's been cared for, you're getting an old-school British rifle made with far more attention to detail than the price tag usually reflects. It's not glitzy or famous, but it checks every box for someone who wants a dependable bolt gun that'll keep punching tight groups. It's proof that Britain produced more than just Lee Enfields and fancy safari rifles. Voere VAC 91. Sometimes a rifle shows up that's so off the wall, people don't know quite what to make of it. The Voere VAC 91 is a prime example. It launched in 1991, promised electric ignition and caseless ammo, and ended up puzzling most of the market. Voere had made precision guns before, but this was another level of experimentation. No brass, no primer, just a block of propellant with the bullet up front. 2 batteries in the grip sent a charge that ignited the round. In theory, it removed lock time entirely, so bench rest accuracy could be taken to new heights. On paper, that sounds like the future. In reality, it was too far ahead of what average hunters and shooters wanted. The ammo was proprietary and expensive, so once production stopped, owners were left with rifles they couldn't feed. Gun control advocates also protested it, fretting over the lack of spent casings. None of that helped sales. Folks who tested the VAC 91 found it capable of astonishing accuracy. A famed bench rest shooter once achieved a group that most conventional rifles can only dream about. But the gun never sold in big numbers, so parts and support dried up. It became a curious footnote, not because it failed on a technical level, but because it solved a problem that mainstream shooters weren't asking to fix. A handful might still be tucked away in private collections, their owners hanging on to that futuristic design that came and went in a flash. It shows how the firearms world can be both adventurous and resistant to change at the same time. Madsen M47. Denmark's Madsen M47 was the last bolt rifle designed for standard military service, yet by the time it reached the market, the world had moved on. Madsen, known for machine guns, saw an opening in newly independent countries that needed affordable infantry arms. They engineered the M47 in 1947 with a nod to proven elements from Mauser and Lee Enfield. It cocked on opening and had a 5-round box magazine, a muzzle brake, and a sturdy rubber butt pad to tame recoil. While it might have been top-notch in 1938, by the 50s, everyone wanted semi-autos. Only Columbia put in an order for about 6,000 rifles, chambered in .30-06, and they never even issued them widely. Those rifles eventually made it to the U.S. surplus market, where folks realized how well built they were. The M47 was a curious blend of old-school craftsmanship and modern design touches, like windage-adjustable sights. It's a pity Madsen was a decade too late. Nobody needed a brand-new bolt gun for frontline troops after World War II. Surplus Mausers, Springfields, and Enfields cost less, and mass-produced self-loaders were grabbing attention. The M47 remained overshadowed, though collectors now admire it for being the final fling of the military bolt-action era. It's neat to think what might have happened if it had shown up earlier. The Madsen M47 had robust construction and user-friendly features that could have made it a contender before semi-automatics took over. Instead, it's a seldom-seen relic that gets attention from only those who appreciate a design that arrived too late for the spotlight. Schultz & Larsen M65DL. The Schultz & Larsen M68DL was essentially a refined follow-up to the M65DL, so I want to shine some light on that lineage. Schultz & Larsen in Denmark had a reputation for meticulous gunmaking, and these models carried that tradition forward. The M65DL already impressed shooters with its rear-locking bolt and smooth cycling. When they introduced the M68DL in the late 60s, they tweaked the safety, recoil pad, and magazine release. They also slightly lowered the ejector port to prevent spent shells from whacking into the scope. Everything about the M68DL was done to high standards. Some had rosewood 4-end tips, others had fancier walnut, but each one reflected a dedication to craftsmanship that was hard to maintain once cheaper rifles flooded the market. Only around 1800 saw production because Schultz and Larsen couldn't keep costs competitive. That scarcity makes them cherished among enthusiasts who enjoy a rifle that's as much about form as function. These rifles were known for a refined bolt throw and solid accuracy. A typical setup came with a low-mounted 4x32 Zeiss scope, which was perfect for a no-nonsense hunting rig. If you pick one up today, the first thing you'll notice is how deliberate the action feels, followed by the impeccable wood-to-metal fit. The M68DL existed during a transitional period, when some buyers still wanted a quality European bolt gun, but the mass market leaned toward more affordable options with modern features. That short production run and unwavering commitment to old-world standards gave the M68DL a certain mystique. Folks who have one talk about it the way one might talk about a classic shotgun, something you keep in the family. Modern shooters might be tempted by polymer stocks and high-cap mags, but this Danish rifle remains a reminder that there's more to a bolt gun than just specs on paper. And there you have it, guys. 8 bolt-action rifles that slipped through the cracks but never should have. Would you happen to own any of these? Drop a comment below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to hit like, share this video, subscribe to the channel, and ring that bell for more Pro 2A content.